Oh my gosh. Hey, welcome once again to Lehto's Law, and this time we're live. I have no idea, other than the fact that a bunch of people are checking in. First of all, hey guys, feel free to tell me where you are, by the way. No, this is not my office, this is my living room. Can you hear me, first of all? Because the question I have is about the audio, and as many of you know, I am a stickler for the audio. That's why I've got all the microphones behind me and set up. So I'm hoping that the audio on this thing is good. Um, hey, somebody from Saginaw? Wow. Illinois, Flint, Michigan, San Francisco, New York City, Wisconsin, Midland, Albany, as opposed to Albany. If nothing else I've learned on this channel is how to pronounce some of the places around our great country. I no longer say Oregon, for instance. Virginia, Pittsburgh. Dars Hugh claims it's 5x5. So the sound is good. That's cool. I apologize for the very, very bleak background behind me. I was simply hoping I could get this thing set up, and I actually have plugged this camera into a variety of different things around the house to see what it would work on. And it would not actually work on my primary computer. But because of the fact that so many people always ask me about this, here's the $100 bill, which we have to break out every single time we do something on Lehto's Law. Otherwise, people will ask me, hey, where's the hundo? But checking in again, Champaign, Illinois, Bellingham, Washington, Mount Pleasant, Lansing, Swartz Creek, not far, not far. Spent many, many times working in Flint at different radio stations. I know all about the environs of Flint, and Swartz Creek is one of them. By the way, if anybody has any questions, wait, the Lions are winning? Don't mess with me. Don't mess with me, okay? If anybody has any legal questions or questions that normally aren't the kinds of things that you felt would make the whole topic for a video, feel free to fire away. Brian, just wanted to say I've recently found your channel, found you both informative and funny. Thank you for being so thorough in your research and laying out said research. Thank you. Hey, I appreciate that. No one is getting that hundo. Yeah, by the way, and people always ask me about this. This is my $100 offer to anybody who can find me the Supreme Court citation that says you don't need a driver's license to drive an automobile on the roads of America, because the citation doesn't exist, but I have that there, and it's just become a fixture in the background of my videos. So, what's my take on the impeachment stuff? I'm really sorry, but I vowed to myself early on that I was not going to get involved in politics. I've spent too much time on Facebook to know that politics is a no-win situation. So I'm not going to go there. That's the one thing I won't talk about in a live feed. Love your channel as a car fanatic. The point it annoys my wife. I've learned a lot from you about certain aspects of lemon law, even though I'm from Ohio. Hey, you'll be forgiven for being from Ohio. Actually, we joke about Ohio simply because as a Michiganian, I support the University of Michigan, and we play Ohio State from time to time, and it hasn't been going well lately, so you can't blame us for being sour about that. Hey, what's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? The question I have for you, is that an African swallow or is that an Eastern European swallow? Hey, somebody asked about choosing law, and that is something I get from time to time. I have always been fascinated by the law, and it's an interesting field because I've got an undergraduate degree in history. And so for me, what other job could you get where you do a lot of research and writing and you get paid to do it? And especially if you can write and research topics you like, such as automobiles, hey, car laws. That's kind of what drew me into the field. I enjoy writing and research. So, Michigander, don't get me going on that. There's a big debate about that because originally Michigan people did call themselves Michiganians. And then somewhere along the line, a politician referred to somebody from Michigan as a Michigander. And there's no question he intended that as an insult. Some people have adopted it and say, hey, it's not that big of a deal. And other people, like me, say, well, it doesn't make any sense to say Michigander. So I like Michiganian, but what are you going to do? Nick, how do you get a good attorney? Here's the thing. If you're looking for an attorney, you should understand that why do I have these things on? You should understand that an attorney, generally speaking, will specialize in certain fields of law. Not all attorneys are good at everything. I'll tell you right now, if you have a probate problem, don't even call my office. I don't even know anybody who does probate law. So you want to find somebody who does what you need to be done. And so generally speaking, you can do research on the internet to find somebody who does what you want them to do, or you can ask around. And believe it or not, if you ask an attorney, do you know attorneys who do this kind of law or that kind of law? Sometimes they will. So, I don't know guys who do probate law, but I know people who do criminal law. I know people who do motorcycle law, auto negligence law. And so if you ask me about those, I can say, yeah, here's somebody I highly recommend. Go with these people. So that's one of the best things you can do to get a recommendation from somebody. I just realized I need these to read the comments. So back on they go. Hey, Steve, I appreciate your input on the myriad of different topics. Good use of the word myriad. I feel that I love the fact that you're from Michigan and an ex-Bad Axer. Yeah, there's actually a place in Michigan called Bad Axe, and it's up in the thumb of Michigan. And I lived there for a couple years, worked in radio there. So I love talking about it. Judicial notice in a case, Keith Hunter. Good question. A lot of times in court, that people will try a case and people make arguments to the jury or the judge, and the arguments are not evidence. The evidence that comes in is evidence. And there's actually an instruction they tell people, and they say, by the way, words spoken by the attorneys aren't evidence. You're to consider the evidence itself. But once in a while, there'll be something come along where the parties want to get something into evidence that's considered to be so basic that everyone knows it to be true, such as, New Year's Day is January 1st. New Year's Eve is December 31st. And to get that kind of thing into evidence wouldn't necessarily require you to bring in like somebody who's a specialist in calendars or clocks, a horologist. So what you do is you'd have the judge take judicial notice, and the judge would then instruct the jury that you are to accept as fact that this is true. And it's not always something as blatantly obvious as like what day of the week something is, but it could be something about like, the fact that, I-75 is an interstate highway or something. So you can actually ask the court to take judicial notice of something and to so instruct the jury of the same. By the way, this is all a new experience for me. So I'm going to keep glancing over here, but I apologize because the feed is going by. Somebody claims their birthday is December 31st. And I'm sure you know that your parents were happy because being born on December 31st gave them a tax write-off for that year. If you're born on New Year's Day, they wouldn't have gotten it. And that's a little thing that attorneys and accountants know. So special word about clocks. Yeah, horologists. It's kind of funny because I have people ask me from time to time, there's the Breitling. I'm not sure if I can get that to show up well on camera. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, what are you going to do? Anyways, the Breitling is the watch I'm always wearing. It's one of the things. Guys are into watches the way women are into shoes, and I apologize. But that's just the way it is. What's your opinion on the GM strike? Hey, yeah, the General Motors strike is still going on. Although I heard rumors that it might end soon. And I have mixed feelings about it. I've got very fond feelings for unions in general. But there was a time when the auto worker unions got a little out of control. So I haven't been following issues in this strike that much. I do hope it ends soon, simply because it's going to have a bad impact on the state of Michigan. Yeah, somebody's pointing out that the picture and audio quality aren't nearly as good as your standard setup, and that's something trust me, I am extremely aware of, and I apologize right now, because the setup I use in my main studio is an extremely expensive camera, an extremely expensive lens, very, very good digital recorder, and an extremely expensive microphone and lights. Okay, that's why we have this kind of lackadaisical lighting here. And I've done some research on how to do a live feed using the professional heavy-duty setup I've got in my other office. But unfortunately, I don't have the abilities to do it just yet. So for the time being, I'm going to do these as an interim or a stopgap. We'll see. Frankly, I'm still surprised this thing's still working. So there you go. My mic input is too high. Really? The question is, can I control that? I'm not even sure how to control that. How do I step back? What I'm going to do is I'll dial it down at how much I'm talking, because I don't actually know. Yeah, somebody's pointing out that I could do this the proper way. Of course I could. But I actually don't know exactly where the controls are. So somebody asked me, am I using OBS? I'm not even sure what that is. I can tell you that what I got is I bought a Logitech. It's a Logitech, camera that sits on top of the thing, plugs in USB. It's got a built-in stereo mic and a decent lens, and the image appears to be pretty good. So I'm having that, but yeah, I apologize for the reverb. I'm actually sitting, as you can see, in front of a blank wall, and there's another flat surface over here, and I'm basically in a a maze of flat surfaces. So the sound's only going to be so good. So no, I can't push the mic away because the mic's built into the camera. So video is fine, but somebody else says it's crap. So hey, tell you what. Sorry about that. Like I said, this is a test. This is only a test. If this has been a real show, you've been advised what to do and where to go. So sorry about that. On your computer should be in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm not going to go there. Interior decorating, something? Excuse me. When I'm shooting videos, I can cut that out. So, hey, somebody pointed out you can turn the volume down. So maybe it's at your end. Joliet, Illinois. There you go. I moved to Auburn Hills from Chicago 2 weeks ago for starting an engineering job at FCA. Graduated in May. I was wondering if you had any advice on Michigan laws to know for a guy new to Michigan. Not really, although the bottle return law is going to get you 10 cents per can or bottle. But I've got some friends who work at FCA, so shoot me an email. My email address is at the end of all my videos, steve@lehtoslaw.com. But I've got some friends at FCA, so shoot me a note, and I'll see if I can't get you guys together. Lisa Hill, are you married? No. What's really funny is I tell people I like getting mail. And by mail, I'm talking about the actual analog stuff where people write on a piece of paper and they fold it up and they stick it in an envelope and they put a stamp on it and they put it in the postal system. And I've actually gotten letters in longhand from women who've said, hey, are you married? That's old school. Michael Moore. It's funny. I've never met Michael. Michael, of course, did the movie Roger and Me, which I enjoyed the movie. Famous filmmaker from Flint, Michigan. Former WABX listener. Oh my gosh, Air Aces, tree climbing. Hey, I worked at WABX as an intern in 1981. It was my first job in radio. I didn't get paid to do it, but I was there. I met some of the guys at the tail end of that era. Steve Costan, Greg St. James, and then, of course, I met a bunch of the guys, and that was my beginning in radio, but WABX was one of the first free-form FM rock and roll stations in America, and sadly went away and changed formats a whole bunch of times. Currently 99.5 in Detroit is Young Country. At one point, there was a talk station that I actually worked at, Wow FM, an experimental FM talk that didn't go that well. So suggestions on law school. Is it worth it to go? Law school is expensive. But if you want to become a lawyer, it's pretty much the only way you can do it that works efficiently. I understand there's ways you can become a lawyer in other states like California. You can apprentice and do some other crazy things. But law school is very expensive. I actually went out of state where it cost me a lot of money to do that. I would recommend that you look at some of the in-state options and get through with as little debt as possible. But, so... let's see what else we got going on here. Hey, we got over 300 people watching. That's cool. Do you have any quarrels with the FCC? Not that I know of. I'm a little disappointed with what the FCC did with respect to deregulation in the Clinton era when they did away with the 777 rule. It used to be that corporations could only own 7 radio stations of the AM and 7 of the FM and 7 TV stations in the entire nation. And they did away with that so that corporations started gobbling them all up. And by the time it was done, 2 or 3 corporations owned pretty much all of the radio stations and in America. And then, of course, it all went downhill because they started syndicating and radio's gone to heck in a handbasket. So that's my biggest complaint about the FCC. Can you be a judge without going to law school? In some states, you can be. In Michigan, they changed it recently. When I first became a lawyer in 1991, there were some judges sitting on the bench who did not have law degrees. And it used to be that you could simply become a judge by being elected, and it didn't matter about your qualifications. I believe you could also become appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court in theory without having a law degree, but the odds of that happening are pretty slim. So, what do you think of the new marijuana laws from Michigan? I actually don't know that much about the marijuana laws in Michigan. I've got a very good friend named Todd Levitt, who's an attorney in Mount Pleasant who specializes in marijuana law, among other things. And I know that they're loosening the laws in Michigan on marijuana usage for various reasons and purposes, things like medical marijuana and so on. And I suspect that in our lifetime, we're going to see it where marijuana laws are relaxed to the point where pretty much you can smoke it anywhere in America. But I'm not that up on them, so I'm not going to give you much more of an answer beyond that. Have you had any demonetized videos from YouTube? Fly Swamper asks. You know, it's an interesting question, and this is the kind of thing that I've never talked about in videos, but if you are a creator on YouTube, you might find this interesting. I've had 7 or 8 of my videos get demonetized, and they don't tell you why a video gets demonetized. So you simply log on one day and you see a little $sign that used to be green and now it's yellow, indicate that it says this video is no longer suitable for monetization. But there's a process whereby you can appeal. And the first thing you do is you click the button and say, I want to appeal this. And of all the videos that are demonetized that I appealed, every single one of them got remonetized. So I think the first thing that happens to a video that gets it demonetized is I suspect that it gets fed into a program that simply looks for keywords, and certain keywords will get a video demonetized as a knee-jerk reaction. But then when it gets appealed, I think a human being looks at it and will glance at it to see how the words were used. And I can tell you right now, there's certain topics I've discovered that are borderline. And so when those things happen, I watch the videos, and sure enough, if they get demonetized, I appeal it, and it gets remonetized pretty quickly. So I have had it happen, but I've dealt with it. So Freeman says, yes, please talk more about YouTube, and I will do that if questions come up. Somebody mentioned WION radio in Ionia, Michigan. I'm familiar with it because I have spoken in Ionia several times. A very good friend of mine was a librarian there, and I spoke at the library in Ionia, Michigan, and Ionia is over here somewhere, a little bit west of Lansing. Hey, Steve, love your videos. Want to help me on auto transportation app? I don't know much about apps. So, jury duty on Tuesday. How can I get out of it? You know something? You got to serve. You got to serve. And what's funny is I've been called to jury duty only one time where I actually went, and I've told the story before. And I don't know why. I know people get called all the time. I've got a brother who's actually sat in like 4 juries. And I got called, and I actually had something better to do that week. But I said, you know something? I'm an attorney. I've used juries. I've asked for juries. I've got to do it. So I went in, and I remember sitting there, and then I remember getting put in the jury box during voir dire and having a jury, having an attorney ask me questions. And it was kind of funny because the guy goes, you know, what do you do for a living? I'm going, I'm an attorney. Because what kind of law do you practice? And I told him, and before he responded, and I said, and by the way, I teach trial practice. And I threw that in there just to let him know I was critiquing him in my mind. I didn't get picked, which is good because I didn't really feel like it. But if you get called for jury duty, you know, if you've got a legitimate excuse, like you can't go that particular day, understand that you can often get out, but they'll reschedule you. And you should probably do it. Just go in and get it over with. It's a civic duty. It's the kind of thing that, I can tell you right now that I had a trial set to go in front of a jury in 36th District Court in Detroit years ago. And we showed up the morning of trial. We put in all the preparation. All our witnesses were there. My client was there. We had all the exhibits done. We were ready to go. The judge walked out and goes, "Bad news." And we go, and she goes, "We haven't got a jury pool." And I go, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "We don't have enough jurors to draw a jury. Like there'd be no selection. There aren't 6 people who showed up this morning for jury duty." And we're like, "You're kidding me." And hey, that proves it's live. My phone just dinged. I should probably shut that off now. But and so because of that, we had to actually leave and come back like months later and hope there's enough people for a jury. So you got to do it. It's unfortunately it's part of the cost of being involved in being an American. So just do it. Any new fur babies? No, I don't. Hey, JB from Oz, how you doing? Wait, JB from Oz, I assume it's Australia. Thank you for checking in from all around the place. But yeah, no more pets at this moment in time. I had Milo and Wolfie. In fact, it's interesting you mentioned that. Yesterday, September 28th, was the 4-year anniversary of Milo's passing. I actually have those dates on my calendar, and it's one of those things that I think about, but at this moment in time, no. So, Cars and Coffees at Chrysler headquarters this morning. How come nobody invites me to these things? It was. Although I was out for a run this morning. I ran 11 miles this morning. It wasn't raining yet, but it was cold. Right now, it's raining outside. But I know. JB says, yeah, you got my mug on your shelf. Yeah, I know that. I just surprised you checked in. I'd ask you what time it is down there, but I just confuse all of us because it's probably a different day. Oakville, Ontario, Canada. How many stalkers do you have? Are you talking internet stalkers in real life? As I think in real life, I'm down to 0. It's a lonely existence. But yeah, if you've got hey, we're over 400 viewers. That's pretty cool. If you've got a Cars and Coffee kind of thing in southeastern Michigan and you have a couple weeks notice, I know it's kind of late in the year this year, but let me know. I love showing up at things like that. I've been to the Cars and Coffee on Woodward at the AutoZone bookstore just north of 14 Mile on Woodward Avenue. Steve, the guy who owns the store, is a good friend of mine. 1:50 a.m. on Monday morning in Australia right now. Wow. Don't you get someplace better to be? But I've been to the Cars and Coffee on Woodward many times at AutoZone. So if there's ever one of those around in the southeastern Michigan area, let me know. By the way, coming up in Alabama in a couple of weeks is a car show in Alexander City, Alabama. And it's in honor of the winged cars. And I'll be down there for that couple days. So Steve Max says he just got his passport. So he says that he can come to America and visit. By the way, I'm running the Free Press Marathon in October, and I have to show my passport to get my runner's number so I can cross the bridge and then take the tunnel back. But I'll spend about 45 minutes or so in Canada running very slowly. I don't run fast. I just run slow. I just run to get it over with. Did I see the Roadkill crew? No, I was at the Woodward Dream Cruise this year, but I didn't get to the Roadkill event. I know they do the big thing there up in Pontiac at Woodward Avenue. So next marathon, Ed asks, the Detroit Free Press Marathon, October 20th, or let's see here. I got my calendar right here. I still use an analog calendar. Paper doesn't crash. October 20th, Free Press Marathon in downtown Detroit. So Pigeon Forge, Tennessee has a big car show. I'm more curious about the name Pigeon Forge. Do they really forge pigeons, or is something else going on? Is there a different meaning of the word pigeon? I'm fascinated by place names. So what's the new deal on the Ford DPS6 transmission settlement? The new deal is litigation until heck freeze is over, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's going to be a while till they straighten that one out. Greetings from Rhode Island, the biggest little corrupt state in the Union. Yeah, and Rhode Island, isn't that the place where they can declare you dead while you're in prison? Gotta love Rhode Island. Am I a Republican or a Democrat? Yes. I love the question. I have a very good friend of mine who's a philosophy professor, and he told me it's his goal in life, in every class he teaches, for his students to not know what he thinks about certain topics. And he said that he's had students come up and argue with him. They said, well, since you're a such and such, and he tells me these things. He's like, and they're obviously wrong. So I know him well enough to know what he is. So I would hope that no one really watches and goes, Steve, you are such a this or such a that. I try to avoid that. I don't want the show to become political. Hi, Steve, from Wisconsin, but washing in Tokyo. Wow, that's a stretch. Thoughts on the legality of the flavored vape ban from Governor Whitmer? Yeah, Michigan's got a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature, overwhelmingly Republican, and she has executive ordered a vape ban, and that's a popular thing these days, to ban the vape. And I don't know much about the vape. All I know is whenever I see a kid's vaping, it looks like their heads are on fire because there's big clouds of smoke. And she did that by executive order. And the funny thing is that in Michigan, I was not even aware that much of executive orders at the state level. And so, it happened. Hey, somebody explains that Pigeon River goes through, and then there's a large forge, and so it became Pigeon Forge, which makes sense. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So it's good to know these things. When are you going to hit 100,000 subscribers? Well, I could hit that today if 19,000 more people would subscribe. But it looks like if you were to do a straight line graph from where I am and the rate I'm gaining subscribers, it's going to be around Christmas. And I've told you guys, I have a 100,000 subscriber appropriate topic for that video. So I have the story. I know the story I'm going to tell in the video I put up when I say, hey, everybody, I'm at 100,000 subscribers. So when I hit that number, I'll shoot the video and I'll put it up. But until then, tell your friends to subscribe so we can get there faster. Steve, where's the legal ethics and responsibility of the system and the courts and the judges if cops can get away with stealing your property, like the coins you mentioned in a recent video? That's total BS. It is. And I agree with you. And this is one of the things that I have been critical of when I talk about civil asset forfeiture or problems with the Fourth Amendment, like I discussed in the video yesterday about the new case out of the Ninth Circuit, where the courts have said that the police can steal your property under certain circumstances and there's no recourse. And of course, that would seem to be a taking under the Fifth Amendment or an improper seizure under the Fourth or something. And you have the court saying, well, it's theft, it's reprehensible, but there's no remedy. And to me, that's a major problem that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, the only way to address these problems would be through legislation, and that would require the legislators to actually have the will to do that. Am I a gamer? Stephen Van Rockel asks. The only games I play is I play chess a little tiny bit, but not as much as I'd like to. When I was working in Bad Axe, Michigan as a disc jockey, there was an arcade at the end of my street, and I played Defender, and I was good. And I've toyed with the idea of buying a Defender upright video game and putting it right there next to my television. But the only problem is it would literally suck hours out of my life, much like it did back when I was a disc jockey. The only difference is I'd be saving all the quarters. So maybe I'll get into that. What is something interesting you have? Oh, an interest I have in other countries' law. I haven't studied that much other countries' laws. Once in a while I get contacted by attorneys in other countries who tell me about the laws they have, but it's always hit or miss. I have read quite a bit about the British legal system simply because that's where our common law came from. And it's fascinating to understand where a lot of these things came from, like the fact that we have a coroner in America. Now it's a medical examiner usually, but a coroner. The word coroner, of course, has the same root as corona, which comes from the Latin word for crown. And of course, the coroner was a representative of the crown who would come out to examine why somebody died to determine if they died naturally, so their stuff would go to their heirs, or if they died unnaturally, the stuff might go to the king. And so, of course, that's where the coroner came from. And so it's kind of interesting that in America we had a coroner despite the fact we had no crown. But again, I digress. Have you ever been in Montana? No, but I'd like to go to Montana. It's a reference to the Hunt for Red October. No, I've been to South Dakota, which I suspect is similar, but I've never been through Montana. I've driven across country 3 or 4 times from Detroit to Los Angeles and back, and I don't think I made it through Montana on any of those trips. I love that part of the country, though. It's a great place to drive if you've got the time and can enjoy it along the way. Please tell us about the type of camera equipment you use. Right now I'm using a Logitech, but in my main studio setup, I'm using a Nikon D80. It's a DSLR that allows you to shoot video. And I run my Electrovoice RE20 into a digital recorder, and I actually take the audio from that and I sync it to the video on the camera. So you get better audio than you'd get from the camera and better video from the camera itself. Do I own any old Mopars? At this moment in time, I don't. I had a 69 Dodge Charger in high school back in 1979, 1980, and that kindled my interest in Mopars, but I've not owned any cool Mopars since then. I might get another one of these days. We'll see. Have you considered changing your channel format, 10 to 15 minutes telling some story plus 30 minutes talking with some guests? Something that's an interesting idea, and I am looking into that. If you followed my channel recently, you know that I've had guests on. I talked to the guys from Romano and Stancroft, Steve Stancroft, Mark Romano. I also talked to Ian Linclip, Adam Alexander, and I'm simply trying to set it up in a way where I can comfortably bring people in, and we can sit and talk and do it where it works out well. And the easiest way to do it is with multiple cameras. And so the problem is that when I go to where somebody else is, I got to bring all my equipment, and if I drag them to where I am, I don't have the setup for two people. I'm working on that, but I will get it done because I know that, let's face it, how long can you guys listen to this thing talk? So guests help. Thank you for doing the live stream. Hey, Mike J., thanks for checking in. Do you have any modern musicians you're currently listening to? I'll tell you right now, I've seen the band Blue October in concert twice. I'm going to see them again in October, and I love them. Now, how modern they are, I don't know. They're from Texas. They've been around for 25 years. I just discovered them a couple years ago. But Blue October is one of those rare bands. I can go see them live. They can do songs I'm not familiar with, and I like them. I've bought several albums, old school, and enjoy them immensely. Very, very talented guys, very, very original, very good sound. Justin Furstenberg's life story is amazing, comes through in the music. I highly recommend them. If you don't care for them, that's fine. But check them out, Blue October. And occasionally you'll see me wearing a Blue October shirt. It's one of the shirts I wear on here, along with the Gary Newman shirt, which I've seen Gary Newman live as well. Do you have any major diseases or an illness we should know about? I'm glad you asked me that. There are only two genders. According to the people who watch this channel, I suffer from a really bad toupee, scoliosis. I've been told I have a hunchback because in my videos they say that my shoulders are tipped. I've also been told that I've got psoriasis because my skin is so pasty. I've also been told that I've got nerve damage and a couple other illnesses. And I actually got a very, very long, heartfelt email from somebody who told me that I really need to deal with my painkiller addiction. And I'm not sure if that's a sickness or not so much because it's non-existent. The idea that you can watch somebody in a video and come to the conclusion that they're addicted to painkillers, I mean, I suppose it's possible. But when one person out of the hundreds of thousands of people who watch my videos, when one person says, oh, by the way, dude, your painkiller addiction is so obvious that it's distracting, the problem's not at my end. It's at that end. So, hey, grocer, hey, dude, before you take off, unfortunately, the grocer, he's the guy who always finds the hundo, no matter where I hide it. No matter where I hide it. I have a horrible voice with that setup. With this setup? Okay, sorry, it's a test. Do I own my own practice? Yes, I've been a sole practitioner since 1994. So it's much more fun working for yourself than anybody else. I've worked with other people, but I haven't had a boss in that sense in quite a while. Rebecca Peterson says, talk with me, Stevie. Not many people can get away with calling you Stevie, but in the live feed today, you can do that. John Rice says, Yellow. I'm not sure if that's a typo or if it's a reference to the band Yellow that had the song from the Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Look it up. Toupee is super fresh looking today. Yeah. Sole practitioner means that I don't work for a firm. I don't work with other attorneys per se. It's just the law office of Steve Lehto. I am by myself, flying solo or sole. So sole practitioner. Yeah, I'm not going to get too heavily into this, but that's attached at the roots, my friend. So there should be no discussion of hair. You and I are about the same age, but I began losing it in the 20s. Now I just get it cut. Oh, sorry to hear that, my friend. Is there one automaker you sue more than others? These days, FCA, Chrysler, unfortunately. And I don't know what the deal is, but I get a lot of calls from FCA vehicle owners involving electrical problems, a lot of computer and electrical problems. And I don't know if it's literally something wrong with the cars or if it's something that the dealerships can't fix. I don't know, but I get a lot of calls on that. What's my favorite beverage? Diet Coke. I drink it like it's going out of style, and I will admit it is one addiction that I have that I really shouldn't, but I do. I drink Diet Coke. People lecture me about it. They say, Steve, it's bad for you. It's rotting your insides. And I say, you know something? People drink coffee. I drink Diet Coke. The only difference is it's carbonated and cold instead of hot and $9 a cup at Starbucks. So. Hello from Southern Illinois, Mark. Hey, how you doing, Mark? Have your videos helped your practice grow? Doug, that's an interesting question. I get a lot of phone calls from people who say, Steve, I saw your video. But the sad part is I get a lot of phone calls from people who say, Steve, I'm in another state. Can you help me? And I can't help people in other states directly, which is why I now tell people to call Romano and Stancroft. If you've got a legal lemon law issue in another state, that's who I think can help you. So, are you rich? Hey, Cindy, how are you? Does it matter? No. You know something? We're all rich in spirit, and it's I have my health, so I don't know how to define rich. Bite Mark, you're my idol. Hey, dude, you're my idol. Okay. You've been a DJ. Just curious, do you do anything with playing music? Instruments? No, actually the reason I became a DJ is I have no musical talent whatsoever. I'm tone deaf. I literally, if you heard me singing in the shower, you'd think somebody's getting killed in there. So I have no musical ability whatsoever. I've got brothers who are musicians, but I can't play an instrument to save my life. I never tried. I can't. I never could. But I love music. So I got into radio as a way to work with music and a way to kind of, take care of that appetite. Later on, I got out of it and said, well, doesn't pay as well as being an attorney. So, do I ever use music references in court if they pop up and are appropriate? The tricky part is to do them where you don't have to shoehorn them in. Once in a while, you do, and also Simpsons references. I throw in Simpsons references all the time. And I never know if people catch them or not, or if they will catch them, and then almost always somebody does. So. Please re-watch this with the ear of a DJ. That's not really appropriate, though. It'd be more to re-watch this with the ear of a talk show host, because talk show hosts can get away with a little more. As a DJ, I'd be doing this in 7-second bites over music. So, Adam Gallagher. Hey, Steve. Hey, Adam. How's it going? What is your opinion on manual transmissions? I like manual transmissions, and I can drive one. I've had several vehicles that have them. Right now, both of my vehicles are autos, and all things being equal, I don't mind having an automatic transmission. I know people who think that having a manual is like a spiritual experience or something, but something doesn't affect me one way or the other. My dream car, quite possibly one of these days, I'd like to get my hands on a Viper, which is going to put me back in, behind a wheel of a manual vehicle. So if that happens, I'll bring you guys all along for the ride. Southwest Florida. Tina, where exactly is Southwest Florida? As I know Key West, but that's South Florida, right? I think I managed to be the first person on your first live stream. YouTube for once didn't fail me. Take me transportation. Hey, it's an accomplishment. One of the greatest things about YouTube is you post a video and people will immediately go first. And there's always somebody goes, second. And I think people go, who cares? Now you want something? It's the right to proclaim that you've discovered something. You know, Ponce de Leon stepping off a ship and spotting the fountain of youth. Okay, he's first. That's who you are when you're first in a video. Naples, Florida. Okay, I've been there. It's where the Neapolitans live. I wore this T-shirt to court. This is how I roll. With a picture of a Tootsie Roll. You know, I don't know how inappropriate that would be, but I actually saw a guy walk into court once with a shirt that said, "I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you?" And I had a judge do one of these and look and ignore it. And I thought to myself, you know, that's a well-behaved judge, I think, because I think a lot of people would have said, you know something, son, that's not an appropriate shirt to wear to court. I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you? But, you know, I appreciated the Simpsons reference. So I'm from New Jersey, and I'm an attorney. Hey, Adam, how's it going? Adam, if you're in New Jersey, are you licensed in New Jersey or where else? Curious. What happens to tickets you get in Europe? I suppose it depends if you live in Europe or not. I've always been curious about that. I drove in Europe. I drove in France. I drove in England. And the question is, if you get a ticket over there and you come back here, can they get you? I don't know. Probably not, but you never know. If the owner of a car dealership was 6'5" and 245 pounds, would you buy gap insurance if you knew aliens would invade the next day? It depends on whether or not they were coming on an eastbound train or a westbound train, I suppose. So I don't have enough data on that one. Are you used to hearing your own voice? You know what's interesting? Because I don't wear headphones anymore, I don't have that issue anymore. But if you watch my earliest videos, this is, of course, season 6 of Lehto's Law. The first early videos, I'm wearing headphones, and then later on I'm wearing earbuds. And then I scrapped them all together because I realized that I don't move around so much that the sound is that off. The sound is okay. But I know that to many people, when they hear their voice for the first time on tape, it's like, oh, that's what I sound like. And I had the same issue as well when I first started working in radio, but I had other issues to deal with too. I sounded very stiff, you know. So it's hard to speak conversationally on the air. So, yeah, Gary points out if you get a ticket in Germany and you get the ticket in a rental car, you will then get the ticket in the mail. And it's quite possible, of course, that if the rental car that you rented in Germany has your credit card information, the money for the ticket might wind up on your ticket being added to your rental bill through your credit card, and that might be part of your rental agreement, which hopefully you have read, because I've told the story before about how I rented a car in France and I signed an agreement in French that I couldn't read because I don't speak French. Scotty says he likes my I do not consent shirt. Thank you. I got that off of Amazon. And I'm embarrassed to admit that one day I went on the internet and said, I want to get a shirt that says I do not consent. And I just typed in I do not consent t-shirt and up popped the thing on Amazon, so I bought it. So I wear it from time to time. How do you pick your topics? Do you just discuss what's on your mind that day? RC Mania, good question. Actually, I get a lot of topics now are sent to me via email, which I appreciate, steve@lehtoslaw.com. And that's where I'm guessing about 75% of my topics now come from email suggestions. Many of them are suggestions that I've seen in the news, but I also do read the news quite a bit, and I'm always looking for stories involving cars or the law. Court issues are good. Court cases are good. Stupid criminals, things of that nature. And because of the nature of law and how law affects virtually everything and anything we do, it's not hard to find stuff that's legally related. By the way, I apologize for those of you who notice my arm is doing this. I have a problem with my foot doing this. I have to keep telling myself to stop that. Have you received threats of being sued for something you said on YouTube? Yes. I have not yet been sued for anything I've said on YouTube, but I've also had people file complaints about things I've said on YouTube. But as a lawyer, I know the law, and as a lawyer, I've read the rules of YouTube very carefully, and I know them very well. And so I've not yet done anything that would be actionable. But as I've pointed out before, anybody can sue anybody. But as of right now, I've not been sued. My wife loves your laugh. She's from Rochester Hills, Michigan. We just moved to Memphis, Tennessee from Auburn Hills. Hey, thank you very much. Because I've had other people tell me they hate my laugh. So, you know, what mountain bike do you have? Have you ever tried downhill biking? I haven't done any big downhills, like monstrous, like on like ski slopes. I've got a Haro. It's a full suspension Haro with disc brakes. I think it's a Model S3. Bought it a couple years ago. I ride it a lot, but I don't get as much off-road as I'd like to. I ride mainly on dirt roads and things like that, but nothing major. I haven't crashed anything big in a while, but I actually do ride 70 to 100 miles a week on my mountain bike. So Ginger or Marianne? Marianne, obviously. Memphis has the best barbecue. I would agree with that. I've been to Memphis before. You can walk down Beale Street and literally just walk in any door and order barbecue. It doesn't even matter what kind of establishment it is. They'll have barbecue, and it's good. Have you ever visited Finland? No, I have not, but my mother's been there many times, as has my father. My parents both speak Finnish fluently. I've got friends in Finland. I got friends here in America who speak Finnish. I have many friends at Finlandia University in Hancock, Michigan, but I've never been to Finland. I don't speak Finnish myself, and it worries me. So it worries me that I not being able to speak Finnish. I know many Finns speak English, but I've never been there. So a lovely country. I'd love to go someday. What are your pronouns? You mean like, am I a him or a he? I'll go with the standard ones for now. Zach Bauer, we know of your dogs. Do you have a family? Wife, ex-wife, kids. No kids, a couple ex-wives, and I've got 5 brothers. So when we talk about my family, I've got 5 older brothers. Yeah, you can do the math on that one. And I have a mother and a father who are still with us. And as many of you are now thinking, going, wow, that woman was a saint because she had 6 boys. And your math is correct. So I'm the youngest of 6, and so whenever I say my brother did something, it could be any one of my brothers. I've got 2 brothers who are engineers. One brother makes furniture. Brother who's a musician. So for instance, the bookshelf behind me in my videos was made by one of my brothers out of wood that he cut down himself in his own. Then he brought it into his own shop and made it to my specifications. People have complained about the height of the shelves on my bookshelf, and they go, Steve, why'd you buy that? No, I had the custom made, and I wanted to be able to put knickknacks and stuff in there. I didn't want to be, standing up books meant that I would have had one big shelf as opposed to 2 shelves that you could see. So I'm not saying I'm right, but it was done on purpose. So yes, all 5 brothers are alive. What is Jay Leno like? That's a good question because I've met Jay Leno a couple times. He wrote the forwards to 2 of my books. Jay Leno is one of the nicest guys that I've ever met. The character you see on TV is not a character, it's him. So if you watch Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC or MSNBC or whichever the NBCs it's on, how he behaves on camera is him. That's him. He's a nice guy. He reached out to me. It's a long story. And he volunteered to write 2 forwards to 2 of my books. He let me drive his turbine car. He had me on his show, on his internet show, and we talked about turbine cars. And I spent the better half of a day with him at his garage, getting a personal tour, walking around, him going, here's this car. Here. And I could ask him, like, what's the story on this car? And he'd tell me the story. And he's like, oh, yeah, this. And he tells me who he got the car from, what makes it special. All his cars are plated. They all run. He's one of the most generous people I've ever met. So a wonderful, wonderful guy. And you always wonder when you see someone on TV what they're really like. And I think that might be why he made such a good talk show host, because that personality of his, that was him. That was him. So one of the nicest guys out there, Jay Leno. Did the guy with the Jeep that went off the road ever contact you after you made the video about moving the car back in the road? No, he didn't. And the funny thing is, we told him that we'd gotten the Jeep out, but we told him we just yanked it out. And it was a couple of years later, I wrote an article about it for Jalopnik where I explained what we really did. And then I shot the video about it. I'm not really sure where the guy is these days. I don't know. I don't know if he'd even care that we'd actually finagled it to get it running, but all's well that ends well. I enjoyed the Italian Hall stuff, Cindy. Yeah, Cindy, thank you for that. I talk mainly about cars and the law, but I wrote a book about the Italian Hall disaster, and that's where somebody yelled fire in a crowded theater, and 73 people died, and there was no fire. And it's a horrible story, and it's a tragedy in Michigan. And so I wrote a book about it. And the book came out about 10 years ago now, and so the topic comes up from time to time, and I do talk about it. I go around the state and I speak about it all the time, and it's one of these things I just really hope that people don't forget. It happened over 100 years ago now, but it's an extremely important event, and there's lessons we can learn from it. So the turbine car was the bomb. Great video on Lehto's channel. Hey, thank you. Have you ever experienced living on the streets? No, I have not. I've gotten lucky in that regard. I've always managed to have a roof over my head, but I've also had parents who let me move in once or twice when I was between jobs. So I sympathize with people who are in dire straits. Have you been to the Tail of the Dragon? No, I have not, and I apologize. I've worn a shirt that references it that someone sent me, but I have not been there. Steve Lehto and Leonard French should do a video. I'd love to. I did a video with Sam Crack a while back, and we had a lot of fun with that, and a lot of people enjoyed the video. It's the technology of getting it to work, but hey, now that I've got this camera, maybe I can figure that out. And by the way, we're over 500 people right now. This is very, very cool. Pistol Pete pointed out, thank you very much. When we interview Steve Yzerman, by the way, I'm a decent hockey fan, and the Red Wings played a exhibition game up in Calumet in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan a couple days ago. And Steve Yzerman sat in the stands in a coliseum that seats 700 people for an exhibition game, Hockeyville, USA. Pretty cool. Steve Yzerman's a nice guy. I've never met him, but he seems like a very, very nice guy. So you need moderators while live streaming to keep the crazies at bay. Without crazies, where would I be? Does the right to travel have any basis in reality? Yeah, you've got a right to travel. Absolutely, you've got a right to travel. Constitution doesn't spell it out, but you have a right to travel, meaning that a state cannot say you cannot go there unless you've actually broken a law or incarcerated or something. But the question is how you travel, and the state can regulate, for instance, if you're traveling by an automobile on the roads, or the feds can regulate if you're traveling by an airplane through the air, and the feds can regulate if you're traveling by a train across state lines, things of that nature. But your right to travel in and of itself, absolutely, you've got a right to travel. So would you ever consider getting a used RV and touring America? Okay, dude, now I know you're messing with me. If I was going to do an RV trip, I'd get a used one, or I'd rent one. But in my mind, an RV is like the worst of both worlds because it's not as nice as a hotel, but it's all the problems with camping. So like, why not just go someplace nice, stay in a hotel, and go hiking? I don't know. It just seems to me that's the way to do it. So NMCCW says, I identify as an eccentric. And hey, why not? No, dude, I understand you said used RV. I understand that. But, traveling by RV, again, I rail about RVs so often, I assume most people would guess that I'm probably not a big fan of them. So, oh boy, does an RV have the same problems as a boat? Pretty much, except that a boat can sink. But RVs, boats, motorcycles, quad runners, anything that's not an automobile per se in most states is not covered by the Lemon Law. And because of that, the manufacturers know they can get away with much shoddier repair service, much shoddier warranty work, and many of them are not built to the same standards that people expect for such an expensive consumer product. It's too bad you could not do a video with someone like Cletus about drag racing. I'm like I said, I'm going to start doing videos with more people as I get the technology worked out. Ever own a motorboat? Yes and no. I mean, I've got a canoe, and my canoe's got a 5-horsepower motor on it, so technically it's a motor canoe. But that's the only boat or watercraft I've ever owned. And I'm not one of these boating guys. In Michigan, a lot of people have got boats, but I've never been that into the boating lifestyle. I've discovered that when it comes to boats, find somebody who owns one, spend a Saturday on their boat, and get it out of your system. And that usually does it for me for the whole summer. No Lemon Law for motorcycles. Yeah, for the most part, in most states, no. So bust out another 1,000. Yeah, Floyd Cordery points out that's what BOAT stands for. It's an acronym. It's also a hole in the water you throw your money into. Depends on which way you want to look at it. D. Sherpke says, hi, Steve. Hey, D, how you doing? Any plans on Lehto's Law merchandise? Hey, since you asked, many of you noticed I have a new logo. My dear friend Jane Chaika made that for me, and fabulous logo. I put it at the beginning of my new videos. And I have looked into having it put on T-shirts and some other things. I'm not going to come on here and hawk this stuff and try to make money. I'm not going to have a channel or a Patreon account or anything like that. But if anybody really wants to have a T-shirt, this is Lehto's Law on it, or a sticker, I think I'm going to make those, and I'll figure out roughly what they cost and to sell, and I'll just sell them at that rate. Same way I do my books. I'm not in it to make the money. I'm just get the stuff out there. If you really want to wear a Lehto's Law shirt, yeah, I'll have some made. So I'm not sure about much other merchandise. As soon as I say I'll get something made, and someone's going to say, by the way, can you make a onesie for a 3-year-old or something? It's going to be T-shirts and stickers, okay? Once it gets too complicated, I don't want to get involved in that. Freeman says he'd get a shirt. Boom, there you go. Does your business card include your YouTube channel? Right now, no, it does not. Although business cards are so cheap, I actually am getting some new ones printed that just say, Lehto's Law on them with an email address. But most of my friends know I do the channel, and most of my clients, I don't consider the channel relevant to their interests. So we'll see. Swag. So what's your favorite food? Sad thing is, I go through phases, So where am I from? I'm from Michigan. I grew up in the southeast Michigan area, the Detroit area. I grew up in a suburb of Detroit called Birmingham, Michigan. And I went to school in Oakland County at Oakland University in Michigan, got my undergraduate degree there, went to law school in California, spent 2 years in California, came back to Michigan, and have been pretty much in Michigan for my entire life since then. A little bit of time moving around different places. Right now, southeastern Michigan. And most of the cases I file as an attorney are in the Tri-County area, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. So that's the Tri-County area. So southeastern Michigan. YouTube channel ever come up in court? No, except the one time where I was doing, I think during jury selection, when I was being quizzed about being on a jury, I think I mentioned that I'm a writer and I do a video and a podcast. I think I mentioned it, but I don't think anybody did any follow-up questions on it. So we'll have a book giveaway when I hit 100,000 subscribers. Sure, why not? Now that I said it's carved in stone. So when I hit 100,000 subscribers, I will do a book giveaway, and I will do a video that says, here's the story I've been saving for 100,000 subscribers. So what if you tell the cop I don't consent to being pulled over? Yeah, we see that all the time. It's called a high-speed chase. It's on the news and on live television in Los Angeles about every other day. So have I ever driven a semi? No. I've driven tow trucks, and I drove my Army truck, which was a 2.5-ton, deuce and a half. Very, very large vehicle, but it wasn't so big that you need a CDL for it or anything like that. It was really, really wide and really, really tall, really good ground clearance. But it was difficult to maneuver in tight spaces. But other than that, that's the largest thing I've ever driven. Yeah, Amy Jo says, I can't wait to hear the story. I just hope it lives up to its expectations. But I'm thinking it is, because the story I've been saving. I've been saving the story. Do I have any Tesla lemon law cases? I'll be honest, no. I've gotten 1 or 2 phone calls from people who had problems with Tesla, who then told me, I dealt with Tesla and they took care of me. So as far as we go right now, I have not yet had a Tesla case. And I know people who have, but I have not. So Tesla is still a very, very small market share, though. And I've said this before, that a lot of what makes a vehicle a lemon in Michigan, at least, is market share. So the car companies that sell the most seem to have the most lemons as well. So that's what it is. So someone says they went to Cal State Fullerton. I went to Southwestern University, which is in downtown Los Angeles. It's right near the old Bullock's on Wilshire building. So if you're familiar with downtown Los Angeles, there's a building called Bullock's, and it's a department store. Beautiful Art Deco building with a big tower and a copper roof. You can see it from miles away. It's a landmark. Right across Westmoreland Avenue is Southwestern University School of Law. and that's where I went to law school back in the late 80s, early 90s. So would I buy a Tesla? Yeah, actually I would consider a Tesla. The only concern I have about a Tesla myself, and this is personal, is the fact that I often take long trips, and I couldn't do long trips in it for fear of finding charging stations. I know they're out there, but where I go, they're not yet. Okay, so that's a personal thing. So are you semi-retired? Depends on who you ask. I still have a full caseload. I still do a lot of writing. I shoot a lot of videos, and I keep very, very busy. But I'm not retired. But you know, ask my friends, and they'll go, all he does is goof off, because they don't consider the things I do on YouTube to be work. So Lemon Law claims against other electric vehicles. I had a couple Chevy Volt cases, and I know those are hybrid. I've never had a Nissan Leaf case. And no, I've never had a pure electric case otherwise. So the only Lemon Law case I had involving an electric vehicle at all, as far as I remember, was a Chevy Volt. And I think I may have had two, but I know I at least had at least one that was bought back. Because I remember the issues with getting not just the vehicle bought back, but the charging station. There was an issue with that as well. Origin of the word lemon as pertains to faulty vehicles. My understanding is that the word lemon can be traced back, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, to an American journalist talking about a baseball player who got traded and then didn't turn out to be as promised. And they said he turned out to be a lemon. And they think that's the first time in print of that appearing, of something that looked good but turned out to be sour. But don't know. And I also don't know who first applied it to an automobile, but it's applied to a lot of products that are defective. So that's where we think it is. So anyways. Unfortunately, we are breaking an hour. And I don't want this thing to go on forever, because otherwise YouTube will, I don't know, what will become of us. So this has been an experiment. I thank you for watching, especially those of you who hung in all the way. I will go back and read all the comments, because I know there's some comments made about the sound. I'll figure out what to do about the sound. I'll also figure out what to do about the background. It might be that I can drag this into the place I shoot my other videos. We'll get some better light in there. Fix the sound. And like I said, I'm a fanatic about sound, so people who point out the sound, don't feel bad for doing that. But we're going to rock it and end it right now. But I thank you as always, and I'll tell you, like I always do, questions or comments. Oh, by the way, next time I will announce in advance, so that we will be able to do this with more planning, okay? So questions or comments, as always, put them below. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.